Hey there, in this episode we're going to make some 3D Mandalorian wall art. I'm going to start off by breaking out my iPad and pulling up some Mandalorian helmet images. So this is my first time doing this project. I'm basically going to take foam board and construct the helmets out of the foam board. And the general principle is I'm going to cut out a piece and then I will layer a second cutout on top of it, and then a third layer on top of that. So in essence, I'm going to have this 3D pop out effect out of the helmet. So I found this image on drawforall.net, link in the description below. I'm going to trace out multiple versions of the helmet and then cut out layers from those versions. And that way, what I can do is stack those layers one on top of each other. I'm going to grab a piece of paper, place it down on the iPad, and then tape it down. I like taping the paper in multiple spots to keep it from sliding. Once everything's taped down, let's just start tracing out all the different sections of the helmet. And I'm going to trace out the helmet 2 more times so I can get 3 copies to cut into. That's going to help me create those 3 distinct layers that I'm looking for. Now, I'm not trying to get perfect copies. Again, I'm just making a test copy so I could see if this will work. And perfect, I got my 3 copies to start cutting into. With the first image, I'm going to cut out the front portions of the helmet. That will be my first layer, and hopefully that will give that really good illusion of pop out. Perfect isn't the goal here. I might make a lot of mistakes as I'm doing this. Really, the point here is to see if this is something that I can do. And yeah, just made a mistake there. Instead of trying to correct, I'm just going to go with the mistake. And the first image is about to come out, just cutting out the glass portion of the helmet. And there you go, top portion is cut out. I'm going to trace the top layer onto my foam board. I did make a mistake here. I'll illustrate it a little more further in the video. Image traced. Now where is that knife? And more cutting. So at this point, same process. We're just going to cut out my line marks and free up this top layer from the foam board. Once you're done cutting, you can free your layer from the foam board. Just be careful. Sometimes it likes to stick or your cuts don't go deep enough. So you can retrace your cuts with your knife and make sure that you don't tear the foam board in any kind of way. And there you have it, first layer complete. All right, now we can take the next layer. I'm gonna take my foam cutout and place it on top. And the next layer I wanna cut out is just the edges and the top of the helmet. So I'll cut that out. And I'm ready to cut out my next foam board layer. If you remember earlier on my first cutout, I told you I made a mistake, and I basically wasted a lot of material with my first layer cutout. This time I'll move my cutout to a better location so I waste less foam board. I'll be able to cut out another piece on that foam board this time. And there you have it. The second layer is popped out, and I can place my first layer on top, and we can see how that 3D pop is getting built out now. All right, time to cut out my last layer. In this layer, I'm going to cut out the entire mask, and that's going to be my bottom layer. And then from there, I could trace it onto my foam board. And you can see here how I didn't waste as much material as I did with my very first foam cutout. Finally, we'll cut out this image from the foam board. Now that we have that released from the foam board, we could start building up the layers. It might take a little bit of adjustment to get the pieces right into the proper place, but we'll be able to see what that looks like. Totally cool, love it. Next, I'm going to use some multi-purpose glue and glue these layers together. You want to get a good spread of glue around the layer. However, you just want to be careful that you don't get the glue too close to the edge. As you squash down that layer, you don't want any glue to pop out from the sides. If that does happen, get a damp rag and lightly wipe it away. Make sure the rag isn't too wet with the foam board, otherwise it will ruin the foam board. Next, I'm going to grab my pen and fill in a lot of the different areas. For instance, I will fill in the mask just to get a better feel of what the painting will look like on the multiple layers. Perfect. I now have the visor portion filled in, and you can really see how this is taking shape. There are certain areas I don't like, however. For instance, I don't like the top of the helmet, how it has that step look. So I'm definitely going to change the design a little bit for the final product, but I do like how this turned out. It turned out really cool. I definitely like the 3D way it looks, and I think on the wall it's going to have some great pop. And I figured I'd spare you from watching me cut this all over again, but here's the final product. I decided I'm going to make 3 more: the Armorer, Bo-Katan, and Boba Fett. Alright, let's get into painting. For Boba Fett's helmet, I decided to mix my own colors versus trying to find them and buy them. I'm mixing yellow, blue, red, and black to get the appropriate color. When you're mixing your own colors, it's a lot of trial and error, but basically you want to take a good portion of yellow and blue to get that green, and a tinge of red to make the olive color. And then finally, I wanted to darken up that green a bit, so I added a little bit of black to just drop the shade down a couple notches. Painting the masks was really time consuming. Not only did I have to paint all the flat surfaces, but I also had to paint all the edges, and that took a lot of time. You had to wait for the paint to dry before you could really grab it, and then from there, it's really a lot of careful detail work getting into the edges without screwing up any of the other kind of paint portions that you're getting. For instance, here with the black, I didn't want to get any of the black on the edge of the helmet, so in these little tiny corners here, it made for very slow going. Once I started adding the black paint to the visor, I could really start seeing how the 3D image popped, and I started to really fall in love with the look. For the green all around the cheeks, I did the same principle of creating that olive. However, I used a lot more yellow in the olive color and didn't apply any black, so you could really see the shade variance there. For the sides of the helmet, I did silver or dark silver. I used silver and added some black to drop down the shade of that silver. And then for the rangefinder, I just used plain silver, so you get a clear distinction between the rangefinder and the side of the helmet. Just putting up those final touches on Boba Fett, and his helmet is done. And it looks so freaking sweet. I love how it came out. So I went ahead and did the rest of the helmets, and we have the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, and the armor as well. And now it's really a decision on how I want to mount these masks. I found this piece of wood at my local art store and thought it would be perfect for the mask. And now it's just a matter of arranging the masks on the board and seeing what I like. I think what I'm going to do next is paint a border around the masks. I like the wood color, but it's a little too much wood and not enough distraction. So I'll do a brown border around the masks and then have the light wood underneath. I went ahead and masked off the wood so I could get the painting done. And then once the board is completely masked, I just need to go around the edges with my X-Acto knife and cut off the excess. From there, I'll paint those sections and I'll have the interior of the board as raw wood. I measured about 1 inch from the edges so I would have a nice framing around the masks. Now it's time to put down the paint, so just drop some brown paint down and start painting around the edges. You can see it's starting to make a nice frame. Once the paint dried, I used my X-Acto knife to pull up the tape. Now you want to be careful when you're pulling it up around the edges where the paint is. You don't want to tear the paint or leave tape trapped underneath the paint. So just take your time and remove all the excess. From there I put down my masks just to take a look and measure things out. Next I got some black foam board and cut it out to size of the frame, and then I glued it to the board. I did this for two reasons. One, the board was starting to warp a little bit, and two, it would give me access to put nails into the wall and hang the board onto the wall. I also decided that I didn't like the stark brown, so I made a burnt orange color for the border and started to paint over the brown, and then I used a tissue to give it a little bit of a dodged effect. So you could see the brown popping through the orange, and I really liked how that effect came through. I wish I had done this before I removed the tape from the center. You can see how I got some orange marks on the actual center frame, but nothing that I can't remove with a little bit of sandpaper. I got 150 grit sandpaper and just started taking down the paint from there. It's time to adhere the masks to the frame, and I used a ruler and T-square to get my measurements so everything was in line and on center. And then from there I used some more glue to adhere the masks to the frame. One thing you want to be careful about is using too much glue. Make sure the glue isn't too close to the borders, and if you can, get a paintbrush. I didn't have an access paintbrush to spread out that paint a little bit so it doesn't squeeze out from the sides of the masks. And again, the beautiful thing about a quick set glue is that you can manipulate the pieces into place, and then from there it will dry pretty quickly. And finally getting Bo-Katan on there and getting that one into place, and squeezing down the rangefinder and measuring everything up, making sure everybody is in line, and we're done. I'm so happy with the final product. I think this looks amazing. So now it's time to mount it on the wall. I just wanted to find a good place for it and make sure everything is level. So I'm using a T-square right now. My T-square does have a little leveler on it, so I was able to make sure everything was nice and straight. And then from there, just getting a couple nails and attaching it to the wall, and it's in. And let's get that reveal. Oh, it looks so good. I'm really digging how this came out. I love how it looks on the wall. The 3D effect came out really well, and I'm super stoked. As you can see, it might be time for a happy dance, and that's enough. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I hope you try this project out. There's a whole bunch of different masks out there to make. I think it would be a lot of fun. Again, thanks so much. Please like and subscribe. I'd love to see your comments down below. Rock on.